Good morning, everybody. My name's Phil Ike, and I am here with another episode of Michigan Main Street Stories, this time in beautiful downtown Owasso, joined by my new friends, John and Sue. Best to start off by a little introduction from both of you. John, how about you? Start us off, say your name, give us a little bit of your background, why you're here.
Well, my name is John Hankard. I have been in Owasso. Actually, I came to Owasso for the first time that I remember in my life when I was 18, 17 years old. And I came here to go to college. We have a college really close to our downtown. And I'm not from that far away. It's only, I'm from Flint, so it's fairly close. But I wanted to do at, 18 years old, you want to get out of the house. Yeah. So they had some dorms here. And so I came and I fell in love with this town and with a girl that I met in class. So
really?
Yeah. So I met my wife here and I never left. So right after college, I opened a little gift shop with my parents. And which was a miserable failure, by the way. We ended up going into bankruptcy, and it was 5 years of the best learning I've ever had in my life. Yeah. I mean, it was such a great experience. Now that I look back at it, at the time, it was quite heart-wrenching to lose everything. But I learned way more than I learned in college. And from there, I went out into the world and worked at corporate for many years. And then I came back to Owasso to open a screen printing and embroidery business. And when I came back, that was 20-some years ago, and I joined the DDA. So at the time, the DDA was the only form of organization we had for our downtown for the business owners. So I joined that and have been here ever since. And
what was the initial pull to join the DDA? Why?
Well, probably I would think like every business owner, the first thing you think about is how can I get involved in the community? And so I don't remember who drugged me into that, anything to do with government, because that was not one of my thoughts. Yeah. So I got involved as just a board member. And actually, I think before that I might have been on a committee of some sorts, but I wanted to be involved in something in my community. So that's what got me into the DDA to start.
Very cool. Sue, what about you?
Well, I probably have the same story as John. Again, I'm Sue Osika, the Mayor Pro Tem for the City of Owasso. I moved to Owasso when I was 18 as well. I lived on a farm in Lennon, and I went to Corona schools. Again, Owasso was the big city that you went to once a week. So I moved here. I started working for a local company, and I met a woman who became my mentor, Barb Clatterbaugh, who got me involved in the community, first starting out being an ambassador with the chamber, and then I did Leadership Shiawassee, which is a great program that helps you become a leader. And then after that, I got on the promotional committee through the Main Street. Before that, I did go to our local college here as well, Baker College, which the company I worked for at that time paid for my education. So that's something that I'm so grateful for that will be never taken away from me. And I learned to get involved in Owasso, and I love Owasso very, very much.
Both of your stories present kind of an interesting concept that we haven't really talked about before on this podcast, is this idea of a city and its relationship with a college, whether it's directly within the city limits or in a township, directly outside the borders. And it sounds like in both of your cases, going to Baker College ended up being kind of the gateway into becoming more connected to the city. And I think that's such a beautiful thing to talk about, because a lot of times there's this very separate existence between a college and a community, when a community can look at, well, there are 300 kids on campus, 3,000 kids on campus, that if we tap into that, can be a great stream of talent or of investment or engagement in our community. It's just a really cool little
right. And Baker College is very involved in their community and has always been. And they do encourage their students as well as their staff to be involved. And I think that does help relate to students who come to Baker what Owasso is about.
Yeah, absolutely. John, you were here, I believe, at the beginning of Owasso joining the Main Street program. Is that correct?
Yes. Yep.
What was the motivation to join? Why start looking into becoming part of Michigan Main Street?
Well, we had a back when at that time, so I don't know. Do you know how long we've been on Main Street? Is it 12, 14 years?
I believe so.
Somewhere in there.
Yeah.
So at the time, I was the president or chairman, whatever you call it, of the DDA. So ran all the meetings. And we used to have a volunteer luncheon or a dinner once a year. And we'd always bring in some kind of guest speaker. So that year, the particular year, we brought in somebody from Michigan Main Street. And they talked about this thing called Main Street. Never really even heard of it. So they talked about it at our volunteer luncheon. And it sparked enough interest that we put a little committee together. And I believe we went to maybe Claire or somewhere and just heard a presentation from the community of what it does and why it's different than just the DDA that we had. But after leaving that meeting and hearing from community members, and it wasn't just like we were talking, like I was used to with DDA, you go to some kind of meeting and it's all these government people talking about, the software and the record keeping and all that, where we went to, I believe, Claire, and when we got done there, all we heard from, I don't know that there was any government people there at all. It was all community members, whether they were volunteers or business owners. And it really made me think, well, this is way better than what we do. And so from that point, we had to put together a presentation of why we thought we should be a Main Street community. Because they don't, in Main Street, you don't just say, hey, I'll do it.
Right.
And they say, okay, here you go. Here's the book. Yeah. Have at it. So we put together this big presentation with a lot of our community members. And I think, again, nobody from the city government was involved with that. It was just business owners that all got together and put together this presentation, and we were accepted.
Wow. I see the grassrootsiness, the hands-onness, I can do a project, and then when that project is done, every single day I can see it.
Yeah.
And I can add to that. And the visual proof of what the Main Street program can do, to me, is one of the most exciting parts. Like, there are people who love that back end stuff. They want to talk about software and accounting all day.
Yeah.
More power to you people. But the idea that you can go and pass a building that is now full of people that once was vacant for decades is just one of the most rewarding feelings ever.
Absolutely.
Sue, what kind of changes have you seen in Owasso over the course of the last 12 years because of the Main Street program?
I'm seeing a lot of people who walk our streets during our farmers market. A lot of the businesses started at the farmers market. We have Foster Coffee, for example, Abiding in the Vine, our local restaurant. So now Foster Coffee has their building. So you'll see people walking downtown, and I love to see them walking to the businesses and walking in. We have Myrtle's Chocolates, Apple Tree Lane. We just have so many businesses downtown that people come to on Saturday mornings. And I love to be downtown at that time as well, seeing everybody. And just when you're down at the farmers market, people are hugging everybody. It's just so great to see people.
The power of people seeing other people. We'll talk about it in a second with social districts and things like that. But there's just nothing that can create the same amount of energy when you walk down your downtown and you see people walking on the streets and, like you said, hugging and showing love to each other and laughing and drinking beer, whatever it is. It's just, you can't replicate that any other way. Sue, give me kind of a Owasso 101. If somebody's listening to this podcast, they've never been to Owasso before, how would you describe this community?
How would I describe this community? Owasso 101, I do that all the time. We have a castle. Do you know that we have a castle?
The Curwood Castle.
The Curwood Castle. We're famous for our Curwood Castle. We have the North Pole Express train here as well that I do volunteer on during the trips that they have in the wintertime. So I greet people on the train and tell them I'm the Mayor Pro Tem. Welcome to our beautiful city of Owasso and our restaurants, and just come and visit us. And after they get off the train, they do that. So
awesome.
It's great to talk about Owasso and our many things that we have here.
Yeah. John, what about you? How would you describe this place to somebody who's never been here?
Well, the great thing is in people that aren't here see so much more than we see.
Yeah.
So as a downtown business owner, I'll have somebody walk in, and in a smaller town, I mean, we have a pretty decent sized downtown, but in a smaller town like this, if there's somebody new walking in your store, after you've been here for 20 years,
Mm-hmm.
you kind of know that there's somebody new. So I talk to everybody that comes in, and the people that are from out of town, they're just amazed on how nice Owasso is, whether they've been to the castle or they've ridden the train recently, and that's why they're here in town. And so they really open our eyes to how great our downtown is.
Mm-hmm.
So everything from the little parks to whatever. So I mean, it's Owasso is better than we think it is, even though we're the promoters of it.
Yes, I think that's true in every community everywhere. I mean, you grow up in a community for decades and decades, and you become almost desensitized to what you have and what is happening and the good things that, the good direction that you're heading. And to have a visitor come and say, I wish that my place was like Owasso.
We hear that a lot. I wish we had that in our town.
Right.
That's a very common thing here.
Yeah. So Owasso is similar to a lot of our smaller communities here in Michigan in that you have this history behind it. And then you have this history either due to suburban sprawl or the loss of industry, maybe take a little dive. And then now in a lot of our communities, we're throwing out words like transformation and revitalization and all of these words that are so important to the future of our communities. Sue, I'll ask you this first and then John next. To you, what does transformation and revitalization mean for Owasso? What is happening or what is needed, or how do you go about that in a way that is good for the community as a whole?
Well, what is really needed, and not only in our community, is housing. So what we're seeing is the transformation of buildings, upper levels becoming apartments, helping with the housing. And with that, we're seeing the transformation of, if we do have those apartments up above our buildings, where are the people going to go? I mean, what can we bring them here? So we see we're trying to get new restaurants to come in to our community, as well as activities to bring people in. If they're living downtown, they can stay downtown and enjoy it.
Yeah. John, what about you?
Well, I think of when I think of transformation, especially for Owasso, and you talk about the history. If you look at, I guess, pre-mall times back in the 50s or 50s, 60s, you see pictures of Owasso. There is not an open parking spot anywhere. Right. There's people on the sidewalks. I hear from my wife, who was born and raised here, that was the thing to do on a Saturday, was you would go downtown, and in other days of the week as well, and you would just park somewhere and you'd walk and you'd go to all these places. And when I first came to Owasso, I didn't feel that. And now you're starting to feel that again. Yesterday, I parked in the 100 block south of Washington, and I had to go to the 200 block north, and I saw several people I knew along the way, whether they were at Niche sitting out in the little outdoor cafe. And there's just, to me, to revitalize is to go back to where people, they can park and they can go to all the, and we have that now. We have all the little specialty businesses that people can go to. So when we talk about, yes, the upper floor housing, we're really pushing that, but that's just going to tend to lead to more of what used to be. Yeah, people using our downtown.
Yeah, people using spaces is a kind of this prevailing concept. We use the word placemaking. And fortunately, placemaking is becoming more of a household word as opposed to just kind of city planning jargon and things like that. Yeah. But how do we get people to use that block? How do we get people to walk in front of that business is becoming more and more at the forefront of how do we improve our cities, especially since COVID. Are there specific placemaking efforts or things that you guys have done either since COVID or before COVID that you'd like to talk about that have benefited the community in some way?
I'll start.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so we have a parking lot actually right behind this building we have to be sitting in. It's a big parking lot that kind of is just it's the back of Main Street because there's not a lot of parking on Main Street, so it's behind Main Street. So the one end of that, we put in this little park. It's got a water fountain in it, got all these benches in it, and this was done a little while ago. But that park now is, as I was walking to here, I parked a couple blocks away, and as I was walking to here this morning, there's somebody sitting in the park already this morning. My store was directly like kitty corner from it, so I could look out the front of my store anytime and see people there. And the kids are like splashing their hands in the water fountain. There's always people there. On an afternoon, we have an ice cream shop that's just a block away, and they'll sit there and have their ice cream. We show movies on the side of the building once in a while, and we'll fill up that park. So it's just a great place for people to hang out, and it's like right in the center of our downtown.
Before I came here to set up my gear, I actually parked in that parking lot to fly the drone, get the drone shots, and that park is something that I took photos of.
Yeah.
And there was somebody in there early in the morning just hanging out there, and I think sometimes communities underestimate the power of that, because if I grew up in this place, they spent a lot of money to have this little park and this water fountain, but me as an outsider, never been to Owasso before, I see that and I take a photo of it.
Yeah.
I take a photo of it, and then I go home and I show all my friends, like, look at Owasso, look how beautiful it is. I never would have guessed. I've never been there before. And those are little signature things that say, this is who we are. This is how we value our community, in that we are investing in our community to the level that we do want to make this little former patch of grass or cement into a place where somebody at 6 a.m. can sit and drink their coffee and listen to the sound of water, because that's a beautiful thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What about social districts? You guys do the social district thing during COVID?
Yes, we do have the social district going.
Tell me about that. How did that work?
That worked well during COVID. Even in the wintertime, I had friends that did go and walk around town in their winter coats and stop in and get something to drink so they could walk with it. Yeah. I see people during the farmers market stopping, having Bloody Marys before they come down the market and walking around.
Yeah. So, Sue, could you, because people will ask me what does that mean? What does social district mean? Yeah. Could you explain what that is?
So the social district is an area. We have blocks and we have signs. We have niche, which opens early in the morning, and that social district, you go in there, you get a special cup, and then you walk around. You can walk around in that social district, which is, I would say, the main part of our downtown Owasso. And you're allowed to with open alcohol. Now, if you were to cross the street, M21, you need to cover that because that's the main street and go across the street. But you see a lot that we had our during our Glow Parade, for example. You see people doing with the Glow Parade as well. Main Street Plaza is another great example of what we have in our community, where we have the Christmas tree that John Hankard so wonderfully gets his volunteers and puts up, as well as the Christmas lights. We couldn't do it without John. But Santa Claus comes there the day after Thanksgiving, after our parade, and we have thousands of people standing in the Main Street Plaza.
Oh, fun. John, maybe this question is for you, and kind of referencing social districts and placemaking, is that we tend to see the benefit of the actions like this, of creating parks, of creating social districts, of shutting down streets to vehicles. But that's not universally the understanding. Sometimes we create a social district and people are like, I don't know if I like that. Or you shut down a street to traffic to encourage pedestrian, and business owners are like, I don't like this at all.
Right.
John, what would you say to people that may not necessarily understand the motivation behind these actions, or might be saying, I don't know if I like this. Why are they valuable? Why are they useful? What would you say to those folks?
Well, I mean, yes, every time we've done anything like that, whether a building's going away because it's so dilapidated, there's no fixing it, and it becomes a parking lot. We're looking at out a window right now across from us that used to be a very large hotel, probably the largest building in our downtown at the time, and now it's a parking lot. So very few people would ever look at that and say, how can that be a positive to your town?
Right.
And it has been. It's been a huge positive to our town. We just actually recently took out another building. Who knows what's going to happen in that space? But to get rid of some of these that are not necessarily historic, but they're just becoming a blight. So everything that we've tried to do or done, there's always the people that say, this is not good for Owasso. This is not the way to go. But as a business owner downtown, things that I think, when my street closes every single Saturday morning, you cannot get to my store. If you're there to pick up a product, the street's closed every morning. However, it's closed because we just put in a farmer's market, and that farmer's market's there bringing in a lot of people. And those are people that maybe they're going to go to the grocery store out east of town and get their produce normally, but because we have that opportunity for them to get fresh grown produce right here in Owasso, that's going to bring all those people here. So yes, you may have that inconvenience to yourself. And really, truly, that is the issue. It's an inconvenience to yourself as a business owner and maybe your employees because they can't park right where they want to. But as a community, it is a huge positive. And so the biggest thing has been, okay, don't think about what's good for you. Think about what's good for your customers in the community, because that's only going to help your bottom line and get you more customers in the door.
You use the word opportunity, which I love, is that these actions create these opportunities, whether it's an opportunity for someone out of town to say, oh, I like this place.
Yeah.
Or it's an opportunity for a citizen to go buy local produce, or a citizen to walk into a business or see somebody and talk to somebody that they haven't talked to before. All of these create these environment for these interactions and these opportunities and experiences that weren't there before. And sometimes tough to see. And naysayers, I think, are important within the context of a community, because they help kind of keep us in check and give us a different perspective. And not everything we do is good all the time. But the idea that we're trying to enrich our places is kind of the important issue. You mentioned buildings. And earlier you talked about having these uppers with residential. Do you want to point out any specific redevelopment projects? Or I heard that some projects were funded through CBDG grants and CRP grants and things like that. Any projects that you guys want to point out specifically?
So do you know a little bit about the Wisner project?
The Wisner project, that was one of the buildings. It was in a fire, and they were, Dave Acton came on, and he was able to help restore that building, and through grants and I believe through MEDC as well.
Yeah, so it's so important to get people into the heart of our places.
Right. Right now we have, they're working on the Fifth Third building, which is in the process of being remodeled, upper housing, with Fifth Third being still in that building. Cool. So retaining, they also look as retaining businesses too. So that business will stay with adding new apartments above the 2 stores.
Awesome. How do you see the demand for downtown housing? Is it in demand? Are you kind of building it and hoping people will come, or what's the current state of things?
We do have a lot of people that live downtown right now. A lot that I didn't realize, and they love it. They enjoy it. They feel safe. Our downtown is safe.
Very cool.
And we do, and of course, as we all need housing, and it helps us with our buildings to keep them properly restored and safe.
True.
So I'll just comment real quick on the need of housing downtown. My daughter has a few rentals right on the edge of downtown. And every time that one of the openings she just recently had in one of her spaces, she had over 100 applications for that one space.
Wild.
And it was an efficiency apartment. And so people want to be downtown anyway. So even though she's not right downtown, she's right on the edge. And people tell her, do you have anything closer to downtown? So they like that convenience. So anything we can put downtown, it'll fill.
That tends to be the challenge of some of our smaller communities, in that you have to appeal to these developers, the people with the capital and the skill set and the experience to be able to take on these what tend to be complicated projects, especially with historical preservation. And you have to appeal to them and say, this is going to be worth it. You're going to get your money back. And to a community that is tackling this housing downtown, it's that the demand is absolutely there. I was in Milan, Michigan, and a man took over 8 buildings, I believe, renovated them all, hasn't had a single vacancy in more than a decade. It's just like they're always full, from the business, ground level businesses to every living space up above. The demand is there, and Milan is a very, very small community, but that investment is paying off for him. And so this is just my appeal to any developer listening to this right now. The riches are in the niches. Like, look at these smaller communities that have this need, that have this demand. You can fill this for them. So help them out. When we talk about the future of our places, it's always a kind of a complicated issue, because where is this thing going to go? But John, I'll ask you first, and then Sue next. When you look into the crystal ball of Owasso, what do you see happening? What do you want to see happening? What should happen 5 years, 10 years, 50 years down the road?
Wow. That's quite the question.
Yeah, you can't be wrong. So this
true.
is a great question.
I say the weathermen are wrong all the time, and they're very accurate.
And they still get paid.
They
so.
do. So you know what? I fortunately, the direction we're heading with things is good. With the development, with the promotion type things that we do downtown.
Mm-hmm.
So I see that continues. It's kind of a strange thing in Owasso right now. In the last 2 years, we've had a lot of shift in personnel. People leaving that have been here for a long, long time. So we have a lot of new business owners, new faces. Not that the business has left, but they've just changed hands. So it's really tough for me to see what the future is because there's so many new people. And luckily, we are a Main Street community, so we have all of our work plans and all of these things that keep us in the direction that we all want to go. I see that if you drive around Owasso, again, if you're a local and you see it every single day, you're going to say, man, there's so many empty buildings, but there's not. I mean, we have really a limited number of buildings. So I see that moving up, absolutely. We have to go to those second and third floors. So I see that as our future to fill up. And then just, keep the robust events that we have going to draw people in and be that town that people go to have their entertainment.
Yeah.
So I see that we're not going to grow so much as a town because we are within this limit and we're pretty full building stock wise. But it's just going to be the quality and type of businesses I see improving.
Yeah, one of the other quote buzzwords in city building, density, and it sounds like John, you're kind of wanting or seeing that direction. Is we kind of have our limits and our boundaries. So how can we make this a more rich community with more businesses, more people? How can we fill these buildings more? How can we have more events? How can we build within these boundaries?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Sue, what about you? What does your crystal ball say?
My crystal ball is going to say in 5 years, downtown Owasso is going to be vibrant. All our store owners are going to be doing well. We're going to have restaurants downtown. We'll be bringing people in from other communities to downtown Owasso to show what we have. And that's my dream. And seeing people walking the streets and just showcasing and working. And I know everybody shops local, and I think that's really important. But I always try to shop local and try to talk to the owners as well, asking them, how can I help, and spread the word for them.
Awesome. Let's kind of bring this conversation full circle, specifically about kind of some of the growth of and vibrancy of Owasso. Owasso is unique in that it's received 2 vibrancy grants. Is that correct? John, can you speak to that, or Sue?
Sure. We have a great example with one of our vibrancy grants. We have trees along Exchange Street, and they look beautiful. They're young trees, but and, in the wintertime, there was no leaves, but I just drove by there the other day, and they have leaves on them. So it looks beautiful, and I think that's where our farmers market is at. So when you have people who are not from our community and they see, of course, we're a tree city as well. We acknowledge that. And I think people, when they see that, they see the trees, they see our flowers, they know people care about their town. Yeah.
Tree's such a little detail or something we almost don't think about. But I mean, you walk down a downtown with luscious, full old trees. It's just the absolute best. John, how else has Michigan Main Street benefited Owasso, either from the back end kind of planning stage of it to actual physical things that you can see?
Well, for me, the Main Street model is best, in my view, has been the organization. So when I started, it was like, what can I do to get involved in my community? So it's really easy now with Main Street. A new business owner comes in, that they want to get involved. Well, we have a lot of things now that we can get involved in. Are you interested in promotional events? Are you interested in volunteering? Or I should say volunteer organization, recruiting? Are you more into business development? So what is your interest as a business owner? And we can plug you into that with Main Street. So it's so easy. Before, it would be when I was looking for, okay, how do I get involved in my community? Well, you can join the DDA. All right. Well, that's a government body, and I guess if that's what it takes, where now you can get involved with something, and we can put you on a committee. The next meeting's in 2 weeks. Come and learn what that committee does, and we can get you right on. And how, with the whole structure of having work plans, we just actually had a meeting yesterday talking about our upcoming art walk. So we talk about the art walk, which is another thing where the businesses are all going to have to do something a little different than they're used to. They're going to be open on a Saturday evening, which normally businesses on a Saturday, that's, as an owner, you finally get a break Saturday afternoon and get a day and a half off. So we're going to ask them to all be open until 7 or 8 o'clock on a Saturday evening. But we're also going to bring a whole bunch of people in to do this art event downtown.
Cool.
So here's an opportunity for a business owner that wants to get involved with things. Okay, you can, first of all, you're going to be open later. But here's all of these things that are going on downtown that you can step right in and get to know your community and have the community know who you are. So for me, the whole structure of Main Street is what really made the difference. And as a business owner, it's so easy to then step right in and be a part.
Yeah.
Talk about the art walk. And not only it brings people to the community, but it benefits our businesses because they can have sales or bring people in, and once they get into your building, then they can hopefully they can benefit as well. That's what our goal is when we do the art walk, is to help the businesses as well.
I two things I want to say. One, speaking to this open late at night thing, if people of Owasso, if you're listening to this podcast, you're watching it, Saginaw, Michigan just had an experiment. Farmers market was a night market. They were open at night. People lost their minds. It was one of the coolest events. The community bike ride group took 150 bike riders to it. It was just one of the most exciting moments. They have a farmers market Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, and it's well attended, but there's something about that night market. There's something about that event that just really brought people out, and it can be an exciting thing. I know I want to watch Netflix too. At 7, 8, 9, like I got shows to binge, but there's something about having this very intentional space to say, hey, we are going to create something really cool for our community. It's just the best. And to a community, I hear the organization is one of the strongest benefits to joining Michigan Main Street. I don't think our communities have any lack of ideas or of passionate people or any of those things, but everybody says the same. We had all these ideas and we had all these plans, but we just never did them, or we didn't have anywhere to put people, or we'd have people join our DDA and then they'd drop off because they just weren't doing something that interested them. But here in Michigan Main Street, you can go on a committee that you love. Are you into promotion? Heck yeah, we got a committee for you. Are you into like places and public spaces and public art? We got a committee for you too. And so it just really helps funnel all of these people who are really community champions and says, hey, we can get you involved in this way.
Absolutely.
Yeah. If people listening to this podcast, and obviously if you do, and you are listening to this podcast, you should get in your car and you should drive here and experience Owasso in person. But if they want to kind of dip their toe in the water and get to know you guys virtually, where can they go to for that? Websites, Facebook page, Instagram, anything like that, John?
Yeah. We have a Downtown Owasso. And if you just search Downtown Owasso Facebook, we try to keep that updated quite regularly of all the events going on. So that's probably your best place to find what's happening. And if you're watching and you are from Owasso, you don't have to be a business owner to get involved. We have every single committee.
Cool.
It's just people that live in the area, and they want to see what's best for Owasso as well. And so we have, young families that are either new to the area or just new young families, and they see the importance of having a great place to raise your children. So, we could touched on just for a second of our Christmas, our downtown, which is Thanksgiving weekend. And I have people on there that help us with that are just, they've got a little kid and they bring them here, and that's how they want their kids to be raised, is in a town that cares about their town.
Awesome. And
so they get involved. So I will take, just residents that want to see an improved city. They come and join us and help out.
Awesome. So Owasso residents, get involved. Michigan Main Street, Owasso Main Street. It's awesome. Visitors, people that want to kind of tourists, they want to kind of check this out. Developers, community-minded developers, check out this place. Visit. drive your car here, visit them on Facebook. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, John and Sue, down here in downtown Owasso for another episode of Michigan Main Street Stories.